Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Monster Manual from Dungeons and Dragons, most current version. I own this book. I like this book. It is full of things I can use to add stress and tension to a game session. Monsters, opposition. Technically, not every piece of opposition in this book is a monster, although every monster is a piece of opposition. It's been a long time since I learned syllogisms. This is stuff to throw at your party. Every game has stuff to throw at your party. Every game has not only a combat system, but things to fit into it. Or they really, really should. I can think of a couple of games where they have suggestions for things, but no stats, and I'm looking at you, Cyborg Commando. But this book that I have for adding stress and tension to a game is readily available. Not just to me, but to everyone. And I'm good with other players having this information until it removes my ability to add stress and tension to the game. I play with a lot of experienced role players and some who are not so experienced. I'm taking my son Andrew through his first few games, and that is an amazing experience. And it's interesting to have that added perspective in some of my more experienced groups. Everyone's fought a beholder. I've fought a million beholders in the past. Okay, like a couple of dozen, but I fought a lot of beholders in the past. As a player, I know kind of how to deal with a beholder. You never let it look at you with a big eye if you're the magic user. Anti-magic field, terrible. And everything you can do to buff up your saves against death. Still, yeah, because you have the eye with a death glare. I know these things. I can tell you what a beholder can and can't do. I can tell you what their dangers of dealing with the beholder are, and good strategies for dealing with them. That's me, as an experienced role player. Sometimes I want to make a first level character. Sometimes I want to make a 0 level character. I want to take a character, let's say 5th edition, which is pretty good for this. I want to take my character and give it a race and give it a background and maybe not give it a class yet and run it just with those stats. Next to no hit points. Really crunchy. Very vulnerable. But if that character can survive a few small challenges, if I can stomp 100 rats, maybe I'm ready to be a fighter, or maybe I think I should go pick up some magic. Depends on what my background is. That character is wet behind the ears, just out of the barn. Just, I'm a teenager looking to get into some stuff, or some guys came and attacked my village and I had to do something. That character doesn't know anything. That character has no experience of the world around him, and as a player, I can walk that character into a beholder den eventually, and I know how to deal with a beholder, so let's deal with the beholder this way. But then I'm not role-playing that character very well. Then I'm role-playing me using that character to use my knowledge. As a player, I can try very hard to not do that, to not use out-of-character knowledge, to not metagame, and use information about the game that I have, but my character shouldn't. I could, if I find out that we're going to go fight beholders, maybe I can have the brainstorm as the character that I should go study beholders. Maybe I can find a book about beholders. Maybe I can go talk to some people who fought beholders in the past and see if I can work out some of this stuff. And by doing that, maybe get access to some of my knowledge. But playing a character with less knowledge of the game world than me is a challenge and entertaining and hard to do sometimes. Then you have players. When I'm game mastering, there are players who will just know things. That, oh, well, we better get torches and stuff because these types of monsters are weak to fire. Well, I was kind of hoping that would be more stress and tension. Some people think you put monsters in the game so that there's combat, and I don't mind that. The fight of the week is a perfectly good format for a role-playing game. I prefer to think of it as putting opposition in a game to increase stress and tension. You want to have to overcome obstacles. That is how you generate stories of heroism and accomplishment. That's how you get experience points at the end of this. You get experience by overcoming adversity, whether that's traps or puzzles or moral quandaries or monsters. Monsters count. And if you've got people with too much player knowledge on the other side of the table who are bringing that to this fight, well, yeah, I'm a third level sorcerer, but I totally know what these dragons do when they sleep. Then that makes it hard to add tension. It means I can't take the stuff in the book and just lay it out on the table because it has less stress, it has less tension. Well, I've read the book and I know what this monster can and can't do, and so I can prepare myself to deal with this monster specifically. And that can be a problem. It can be a problem when I do it. It can be a problem when it happens on the other side of the table. So I do something when I'm running. People who have played with me as a game master for some time know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I will be using the monsters in here, but not exactly as they are in here. I improvise. I throw a couple of extra things in there. Well, yeah, it's a dragon turtle, but it's got some weird glowing tattoo looking thing on the side of its face, and you're within 10 feet of it, make a save versus death. Sorry, it's radiating something. There are plenty of qualities for animals listed in this book. Animals, monsters, abilities. I say mix and match. I say that's boring. Out of the book, a lot of the stuff in the book is absolutely amazing. There's wonderful creative effort gone into the book, but people have read the book. There are some things that haven't changed thematically for a number of editions, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. You come to rely on liches being liches. Yo. But what if the lich is wearing powered armor? What if the lich is gruesomely radioactive? What if the lich retains the powers of a vampire? What if the lich isn't evil? What if the lich is a powerful healer and is just trying to bide his time while he's working on a cure for all disease? What if? Oh man, look, it's orcs. What if these orcs have been training in the martial arts? What if these orcs have been possessed by an entity from a Lovecraftian universe? What if these orcs have gotten themselves access to weapons from some crashed spaceship? I will go nuts. I will take stuff from left field and put it in center stage. because then that sure knowledge on the far side of the table, I've read this book, I know what these are. I don't care if you've read the book. The book says that orcs are like this. Well, they may be like this, but they're also radioactive. Roll. I started doing that because I had very knowledgeable players. I keep doing it because it's fun. I don't like keeping things as they're written. I don't like keeping things all in the same genre. I believe in pulling things from all over the place. I run kitchen sink games, as in everything but, and then I will throw in the kitchen sink. I've had some wonderful game masters in the past, and as game masters, we are the product of the games that we have been in. Had GM in St. Louis who wanted to run Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but wanted to throw a couple of other things in there, including villains and vigilantes. TMNT with villains and vigilantes was amazing. I made dozens of characters just for that, just because I enjoyed the character creation process so much. And it was a off to the side parallel modern world, and I plumbed it for lore and rose characters out of that. There were generations of characters. My characters had children, and those children were interesting characters to roll and generate. And if you wanted a character from someplace else, GM would do the conversion on the fly, and yeah, you make up that character and we'll bring it into this world. So I've made characters out of space opera and Call of Cthulhu and brought them into this amazing world. And I still use concepts that I developed in those games. I still use characters as background that I developed in those games. Running Dungeons and Dragons with other DMs who brought this. I saw something in a movie I liked, and I brought it in here. You don't know what its stats are because I made this, and this is now in the game, and you're going to have to deal with this, and it's beat when I tell you it's beaten. It brings a level of stress and tension to the session that you want. You don't want a session to go by where there's no worry. You want people concerned. You want people burning resources to accomplish things so that they don't have to worry so much about what's in front of them. You want your players a little tired at the end of the day. You want people engaged. That means opposition, and that means unpredictable opposition. Because when you don't know what's coming out of that, when people have to, well, let's shoot a dozen of these zombies and see what happens, because I want to know why these zombies are different from those zombies. Did that last week. Worked out, 2 weeks ago. Worked out amazingly well. It also means that those characters that have been optimized to the point where, well, this character is immune to almost anything, that almost is a lot of wiggle room. Characters who can take immense amounts of damage often have to worry about breathing or becoming radioactive or starving to death or being entangled in things. Damage is one of the least interesting things I can do to a player character. Being able to come up and throw another quality onto this monster on the fly, practice that. If you want to keep the tension on the far side of the table, practice adding qualities. Practice finding that one extra thing that makes this monster more of a monster than every other monster like it. Well, you have fought a dozen Ogre Magi, but that Ogre Magi, not only does he have spells, also a Psionicist. Roll initiative. It's never a bad thing to keep things interesting. And sometimes just making things interesting is the most rewarding part and the most engaging part of being a game master. Well, thank you for following me along on this particular rant about my technique. I had to clean the hair is different every so often. I got to get it shorn down because I was getting the crazy old man hair again, and I prefer it like this. It's easier to deal with, and I kind of like the way it feels when it's really short on the back. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you'd like to share your techniques of making things interesting in your games, or stories about how your games have gone when they got interesting, or anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, leave me a comment. I love getting comments. You'll love leaving me one. If you'd like to see these videos as soon as they come out, and why wouldn't you? They're awesome. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you do hit the subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so that you're alerted as soon as the videos come out. If you'd like to help out in a little more substantial way, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps and allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for your attention. I'm Scott Corum, this is What Does Matter to Me, and I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.